wanna see good news. You don't see on regular TV. From another perspective, something relative to your needs. And we gonna have deep subjects, and we gonna turn the lens. And there's no topic we won't skip. So please don't miss weekly. Tune in to weekly check-in. Weekly check-in. Weekly check-in. Weekly check-in. Tune in to weekly check-in. Weekly check-in.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world. But if you are anywhere in the United States, welcome to Crazy World. We are on the weekly check-in with the homie, and the homie, Dave Crawford, Rolanda Spencer, and Mikhail Furness. How you guys doing? How you feeling?
Doing well.
Wow.
Good.
All right. So Rolanda is going to help me co-host this. We're going to dive right into all of the things that we've been experiencing. So I had to stop because we were having a hell of a conversation before. Dave Chappelle. We started off with Dave.
I think Dave is moving into GOAT territory, and I don't say that lightly. As far as a comedic legend, some of the things that he said is not only provocative, it's provocative with edge, but it's still hilarious and timely. And he does just enough he does enough for comedy that they need to continue to be able to move forward in this super PC climate, to be able to move forward in this climate of feeling like you can't say anything to piss off certain groups of people. I think he has just enough courage and boldness to do it, but also in a way that's very teachable, and also in a way that is like biting, where you have to, it's that truth that you have to hear it and you feel it when he says it. And it's so funny because watching that, the Dave Chappelle show was just released to Netflix. So I went back and started watching, and he was ahead of his time. So many things that were in that show are so prominent today. Like so many things that he was doing skits about are much more prevalent today than they were then, almost like he saw it coming, like he saw it coming down the path. Like if you watch the Clayton Bixby,
that's what I was thinking about when you said that.
If you watch that now and you think about the Black Trump supporter, like and how they speak and how they react to Black people, I was like, yo, this is wild, because it's like he saw this whole thing coming down the pike. But that was my take. Like he killed on Saturday Night Live. Now you could tell he wrote a lot of the skits, because even a lot of the skits were set up like the Chappelle Show skits, more or less, than a Saturday Night Live skit. Like I'm like this is definitely a Chappelle Show skit. It's not an SNL skit. So it was dope. It was dope to see.
To piggyback on your point, I think there are several things. I think for me, Dave Chappelle hits on, I guess, the quintessential. I guess the elephant in the room. White America likes to experience Black, but they don't like being Black. Mm-hmm. And I think in terms of what 2020 and this pandemic allowed white America, as Dave Chappelle underscored, is what it feels like to be Black. Because we look at all these, as he underscored with the drug epidemics, the homelessness, the people on welfare, he said, welcome to Black, to being Black. and he said, come and get your lessons. And these are things that, in terms of how you deal with the challenges of being disenfranchised, of being drug addicts, but still having white privilege to get you out of it. And I think he talks about that and a lot, and shows this to white America and puts this mirror in their face. One of the skits to underscore Dame's point is the one about the Black people losing their jobs, which was brilliant, because the two people that have lost their jobs in the pandemic were Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben. And they tried to bring in the Allstate guy. So it also talked about different class issues in some aspects. How we are transitioned from generation to generation, and now we're at a certain class, and how the older generation may even look at us as like, you're privileged, why should you get the benefits that we didn't have? Right. So it really, he opens up the Pandora to everybody to see their soul and their insecurities.
Right. And I think, SNL in particular has historically have these, provocative, polarizing figures to do the monologue, especially right after an election. Remember, Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock were on after Trump was elected the first time, or the only time. It's looking like, but it's like, this is when you bring out your heavy hitters. This is when comedy turns into more political statements. A few months ago, I don't know if you guys remember when Bill Burr went on, and right before the election, and he was talking about how white women had co-opted the woke movement. And I thought that was very, very interesting. And that, even when I watched that, I was thinking of Dave Chappelle in terms of the way that he delivered, it was a lot of white folks that was mad. It was a lot of white women in particular that was mad. And I find that with Dave Chappelle, white women are the most offended by his work. You know what I mean? So, but I don't know. But now, like you said, he's reached GOAT status. I don't think it matters anymore. He got the Mark Twain Award. You know what I mean? He's reached the highest pinnacle of comedy, especially for a Black man who just walked away from it at some point. Everybody said he was crazy, and he bounced back like no one I have seen in recent history. So yeah, I think it was a good look.
Can I add something too? One thing that Dave also underscores is how blind and how maybe misinformed that a lot of the Trump followers are, because he highlights how, he's working to help his small community in Ohio, Yellow Springs, and how he has to remind people, Trump is actually working for me as opposed to you. You're the poor one. I'm the rich one. I benefit more from his policies than you.
Yep.
And even in terms of how white Americans may look at him, as being obstinate, maybe being, inflammatory in some aspects. But to us, he's a champion of our causes, whereas other people who, look at Trump as their champion, in actuality, he's their enemy. So it just underscores how people have their views kind of misaligned in this whole thing. The people they should be supporting, they villainize, and the people we champion should be the villains.
Perfectly said.
Yeah, I didn't see it, so I have to. Yeah, I have to see it. I think Dave Chappelle is a great example of when given the space to grow, you can grow, because some of his earlier stuff was garbage. I remember.
That's true, though. You can't.
It was straight shit.
He always had that.
Nope.
Yes.
No,
yes.
I mean, there's stuff I've said, I'm like, why the hell I said that? But I gotta just charge it to, you gotta grow. That goddamn movie, How High? Was that the movie? No,
it was
Half Baked.
Half Baked.
That was genius. Half Baked was genius. I disagree. That's a different. Half Baked and Soul Plane are classics.
Lord,
yes.
No, see, talk about Soul Plane. I love me some Soul Plane. No, but that Half
Baked definitely.
And can we talk about, though, Dave Chappelle's glow up, though, because he's like a beast coming out of there with muscles and his mafia glasses and his military wear. I'm like, where Dave going with this? Right. You know what I mean? Because he had a whole new, cool dude vibe. He even comes out with the cigarettes, and who can smoke cigarettes anymore in public? He came on the stage with the cigarettes and whatnot. So he's leveraging his I'll call it is his power to influence. He's definitely leveraging that in a way that's really beneficial for him moving forward.
What did Sam Jackson say? He said he got I don't give a fuck money.
I need some
That's
of that.
What Sam Jackson said.
Let me get
That's
some
when
of
you
that.
can do what you can do like that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope the space opens up to have more people who can really infuse, because I think comedians are just very well studied people who look at the world in these really kind of unorthodox ways. So I know there are, other people who can add to it. I think one of the things that we really definitely need to open up for is that he should not just be the one, because the GOAT to me implies that there's only the one and there's many more like him.
Mhm.
So that would be pretty interesting to see. Because I think Chappelle does, I think he does a hell of a job on race when he talks about race and breaking down and those complexities. There's some other things that I'm like, it's okay. You know, it's all right. But I would say this, every time he talks the LGBTQ IA plus, I think that's what it's called, community, be in a tizzy. They be
coming down on him.
Yeah.
Well, I think the issue for me, the issue with that is when you do that, because I feel like if you saying you want to be treated equally as everybody else, that means you're gonna equally get these jokes like everybody else. Like
I like that.
Work,
no,
right?
I like that.
You're right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I mean, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, why can't your community be laughed at like everybody else's?
Right.
Why not?
Right.
It's funny. A lot of times, you know what I mean? As long as it's funny, you know, it is what it is.
And he's doing an age-old strategy. I mean, this is something that is traced back, you know, thousands of years in multiple cultures, definitely African culture, where you use comedy and humor in order to address very serious issues, so people can be able to talk about it and digest it in a way that you couldn't if it was some straight up arguing, you know, and debating. So he's
absolutely
carrying this long tradition, in my opinion.
Right.
But
I said, sometimes the truth is like a nugget. You got to break it down. People can't handle the whole breast. Break it down to some nuggets. People can't handle it. You know, we got to give it to them in small doses.
Right.
However you can trick them to eating it.
Right.
So thinking of this truth, let's talk about this truth. When the hell do you think is Trump going to concede? What's going on with that?
He's going to concede on his deathbed on some Hamilton shit.
Right. January 19th. 11:59.
Right.
And it's probably already a slum, just a slum place right now. It's
look,
you know,
he lies
who
all
knows?
the time.
I mean, look at it.
That's what I say. He lies all the time. He lies all the time. He got 4 baby mamas. He be paying for porn stars, like, and now he's not gonna leave when he ain't no longer the tenant.
When he got fired,
yeah, we got.
Where my check?
And like, well, y'all fired me. I ain't finna work for this 2 weeks notice. I'm not working.
You know what? I think this is a big distraction from what's going to happen. It's exposure. Mm-hmm. And what we're going to see is how ill-prepared and unprofessional this regime was. They have no plans. So what they're probably doing now is scrambling to put some template together to do what we've done. So all this is distraction. He can't concede because he has nothing to hand over.
Right.
And especially if you did everything on a paper napkin.
Well, go ahead.
And then when people have to come in and it has to be revealed that your leader is the fraud that we told you that he was or he is, society won't be able to handle that. So this is a crucial issue I think they're trying to negotiate. You know, we can finesse this under our continual fuckery of, you know, of cult, of impropriety. But the fact remains, they were not prepared to handle this, and they have nothing to hand over. They have no lesson plans for the substitute teacher.
Why do you think it's so difficult for Trump supporters to accept, or let's even go back to acknowledge the sheer vastness of the lies that he has told and the corruptness of his administration? I think all but he has gone to jail, right? From his original administration when he came into office. But people are still following him. And we know that for Barack Obama, even if it was Hillary Clinton, hell, Bernie Sanders, had any of them done these same things, they would have been removed from office within this 4 years. So what is it about Trump, do you think, that why does he get away with it? Why do they follow him?
I think, you know, we're beyond trying to rationalize that because this is beyond logic. You know, this is something of a sickness, if you will. It's a cult. This is not a political ideology we're living under. This is not a sound Republican ideology or democratic practice. This is strictly knee-jerk emotion, which is often, the things that bring people into cults. So if we're framing this from a political and social perspective, I don't think we can have an answer, because it's a clinical diagnosis that's required right now.
Oh, wow.
Because it makes no sense for you to say that, you like, to your point, we have a man who, an avowed pussy grabber, alleged predator, is not the type of person you allegedly would want to run a company when you look at maybe his financial background, his dealings as a businessman. But yet we put these people up because of the cult and what they purport with the imagery and the words they say. It has nothing to do with order and structure, but the visceral emotion, and I hate something that makes me feel inadequate. And that's a psychological issue, I think. I can't really pinpoint that. We're giving him time to say, for the loser, we need to give him time to heal and get up. This is the narrative. We need to give him time to process this, that he lost. Dude,
some people still
man.
don't think that he lost, right? Some people still think that they need
this
to
is totally different privilege. This is not political, that we followed the process that you set up. And now we have to give you added benefits for you to heal when you lost legally.
Did you want to add anything, Dame?
Yeah, for me, can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. For me, I think it is the audacity of whiteness for a lot of it. A lot of his followers is about not policy. It's not even about the presidency. It's about him uplifting whiteness in a certain way. And then on the other side, when you see like Black and Hispanic men or Black and Latino men supporting it, it's that fake machismo. It's that fake misogyny, because most of the guys who, if you ever take a gander at my Facebook, because it gets wild at times, if you ever take a gander at my,
have to send you a friend request.
Yes, you do. You ever take a gander at my Facebook conversations, I noticed there's a very specific profile of the Black men who support Trump. Like they almost I can line them up and they almost all the same. I hate to say this, but it's not very attractive. It's not very attractive dudes who have very misogynistic ways, who talk very harsh about women. Like the same dudes exactly. Like the same dudes who will be going hard for Trump and all this, the minute we start talking about Kamala Harris or Stacey Abrams, the first thing, that bitch, that's literally how they talk about that. And I'm like, why is that the conversation? Why does it drop to that when you talk about women, period? Like, yeah. And it's always like the same thing with those guys. And I'm like, yo, and they're like, I don't want to say less educated, because education ain't always keep, I guess I would say lower intellect. Like the dudes who support Trump are really lower intellect, and they respond to everything with a YouTube video. Like you're asking to, you know what I'm saying? Like you're really asking, like, explain to me why, because I've tried to have those conversations, as Kai will tell you. I've tried to be like, will you explain to me exactly what Trump has done? And then they come with a whole bunch of QAnon shit that is like based in I don't know what, and they believe it wholeheartedly. And it's even worse because Fox has taken on a lot of the QAnon shit, so it's become mainstream, so they feel even more vindicated in this mission of pushing this stuff. And same thing like with the Latino dudes that I know who support Trump. It's the same kind of profile, except they think they're the exceptional Latino. So it's like, I support Trump because I came over here and I did everything right. Since I did everything right, all the other Latinos need to do everything right like I did. Otherwise, I feel like Trump. It's really weird. It's really interesting to watch people vote against their own self-interest as well, like knowing what's happening. Like I'm watching people rail against Biden's tax plan who I know damn well don't make $400,000 plus.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
so Dan, can I ask you a question, bro?
Yeah.
So do you think we have our self-interest and our identity tied up when they shouldn't be? Are
Oh,
those
absolutely.
things
I think
mutually
so.
exclusive?
No, I don't think so. But I do think we have. I think some of us have our identity tied up in places that they shouldn't be, and I think that's what you get to see play out right now, right? Like that's what you get to see play out right now in the arenas of like for example, if I'm having a conversation with Kaya and we're talking about the things she likes and dislikes about Kamala. She can give me a succinct list of the things she don't like, and we can debate. We can go back and forth about her record and this. When you have that same conversation with these kind of guys, it's never about her record. It's never about what she actually. It's like that bitch slept her way to the top. That bitch, it's those kind of baseless conversations that are straight just based in chauvinism. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so to your point, I think it is like we have. I think a lot of us covet that white power. A lot of black men covet. They don't want to dismantle the white power structure. We want to be able to do it.
Access it.
Participate in it.
Yeah,
Yes.
we
Right.
want to, and
Right.
I said that's a hard conversation to have because I was like, I know if I try to have that conversation, people gonna be like, oh, you're just trying to tear down a black man. I'm like, no. I really want us to be better. I want us to be better, and I've seen us want, and I think that's when you get the people like 50 Cent who will say stuff about, I don't care about black people, Donald Trump, right? People like him with that kind of mentality, those are the people who like, I want the access to the power. I don't want to change the power structure. Where most black women, because y'all are nurturers by nature, y'all like, no, we want to tear the system down so everybody can be good. And a lot of black men are like, fuck that. I want to be elite. I want to have that power too. Because I've even seen with like black Trump supporters who have money, like in LA, like black Trump supporters in the hood, but they got like a little money. They got a little bread. It's that same thing. It's like that proximity to access. So I wouldn't even say it's the proximity to whiteness for them. It's not that they want to be white. It's that they want to be able to participate in that white power structure.
Can I say something? I want to and I want to put a question out there. First, I want to say I don't think necessarily women are nurturers by nature. I think it's a conditioning. Like we're socialized to be nurturers. You know, there are women who are not that.
And then we get called men. They think we're trying to act as men, which is so bizarre.
But you know what? I think there's an undercurrent there, I think, because there's a lot of misandry and misogyny on both ends. And I think you have this they're pushing against each other. You know, you have women who may have resented this power structure emanating from the Me Too movement who've gone full bore, and men are looking at that as, oh, I was just being a boy. This is what I do. You're infringing on my maleness. When at the same time, men may not be realizing when they're infringing on somebody else's womanness or being. So now we have this situation that everybody's pushing against each other, and you get one guy that's in control. That, he bullied his way through the top. He was able to use white privilege. It's not the only person that, like, you take in Kansas. There's a 20-year-old guy that got elected to the House, to the Senate, and he was convicted of revenge porn. So when he was a teenager, he put out some revealing pictures of a girl who rejected him, and later on in life. But this is the thing. Men are against women who reject them, and men are against women who achieve more than them based on maybe pure skill, ability, and it has nothing to do with affirmative action or anything. So it's a whole lot of things with, I think, the jealousy, the envy, opportunities to Dane's point, where people want to participate in this, this veneer of white male privilege and access when that necessarily wasn't meant for us.
Right. So that actually leads into, no, go ahead, Rolanda, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to off that point then, how do we wrap our minds around the amount of white women who voted for Trump? It was a lot of them.
And you know what? I'm going to tag on. I'm straight West Coasting it. I'm gonna follow that cab with dope in it, as we say on the Domino's table. So I'm gonna tag on to what Rolanda present this question is that a lot of the chatter that I heard afterwards, or the posts, are 20% Black men voted for Trump. So let's kind of talk about these percentages of of these polls that are coming out saying who voted for whom. But that is just to add to what Rolanda said.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting that the number that gets advertised is 20% black men voted for Trump, not 80% black men voted for Biden, right? Like,
which is the largest that's the largest demographic of male groups that voted for Biden Harris for black men.
But you wouldn't know it by the way it's been put out in the media, right? And then also, I think, and this is going to get into I know a conversation that we're trying to have further down the line. This is something I want to talk about in regards to percentages. Like Rolanda said, 55% white women voted for Trump, but also 55% white women, around 50 to 55% white women have voted for the Republican candidate since 1968 any damn way. So I don't understand why at this point the Democratic Party, the DNC, which has been very, very trash, it's like they fumbled their way into winning this election, but that was because black people came through it all with that 80% black men and that 93% black women. That's why, because they got enough. All those counties they was waiting on that came in on colored people time was us. When they was waiting on Philly, they was waiting on Atlanta, Detroit. You know what I'm saying? Like all the places that they were waiting on to put him over the top. Milwaukee was us, right? So one, I want us to understand now the power we have in electoral. We don't have to be the majority, but we are the ones that we are the swing vote. Damn the swing states. Black people are the actual swing vote. So I want us to kind of start to understand that power, and we need to start to wield it to get things that we need done for us specifically. But also, the DNC needs to stop putting money into this myth of trying to win over the white suburban soccer mom. She's never coming over here. She has not been here since 68. She's never coming. Stop it. Stop putting all this money into trying to woo her and put that money into more black speaking, more black media, speaking to black people directly. Put that money into the Latino community. Put, like going to there was a young Puerto Rican lady. I wish I could remember her name, a young Puerto Rican activist. And she was saying, she was begging the DNC, look, the Cubans in Florida, they are not going to vote for y'all. The Cubans in Florida, they present as white, so they're going to vote for Trump. But what y'all do have is a new set of 1 million Puerto Ricans in Florida. We actually outweigh the Cubans in Florida now. So come down here and talk to them and get us to come out and vote, and you'll get the votes you need to in Florida.
Was that Rosa Clemente?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And they didn't do it. So they lost. And she said, because the voter turnout for the Puerto Ricans, the ones that did vote, it was like around 70% clip. Yeah, 70% clip for Biden.
Right.
But she said, but a lot didn't turn out. Kind of like how I was for black people in 2016. In 2016, like same thing, like 80% black men voted for Hillary and 90% black women voted for Hillary, but it was a low turnout overall for black people. So it was kind of the same thing for those Puerto Ricans in Florida. And the same thing happened with the Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania. She was like, come to Florida and come to Pennsylvania. Luckily, we were able to, win over Pennsylvania anyway, but they wouldn't, if they understood that the demographic they should be going after now is the black and Latino vote, they wouldn't have to worry about that 50% white vote at all, really, because you could swing so many states in your direction. So,
but let me even kind of debunk even the 80%, like in terms of how this narrative, in terms of black men voting, 20% of black men did not vote for Trump. 20% of black men just did not vote for the Biden Harris ticket. I think when so that's a lie. That's lie number one. They said that it shows like, I think it's like maybe 12% or 13% actually voted for Trump. What happened is that black men didn't vote for a trash ass Democratic ticket. That's what it speaks volumes to, which is exactly what happened in 2016, because they said about 82%. There's a 2% decrease from the Hillary. Who was Hillary's running partner?
Tim Kaine.
Kane.
Yeah, Kane.
Kane.
Beige white wall.
Yeah. To this one, it was like it was like 82% then, 80% now. They're just not voting for the Democratic Party because I had a really great conversation with this guy who does a lot of race work in Lexington, and he said, as a black man, it was unconscionable for me to vote for a ticket that had two people that were not, peripherally attached to putting black men in jail, but were directly connected to it. It was hard for me to do it. He actually voted for the Biden Harris ticket, but he said, but as a black man, when I cast that ballot, for me, it just was something inside that didn't feel right. And so that's, I think and I have to emphasize what Dane said. If the Democratic Party is going to put resources into a population, put it into a population that puts almost their whole political future in your hands by voting for you, which is what they're calling for now.
Well, look at Stacey Abrams. Look what Stacey Abrams did. You had a black woman single-handedly give them Georgia that they haven't had in over 26 years because of the work she did, the work she put in, mind you, without a lot of support from the DNC. Like, they could have gave her more support down there, and there were certain candidates that they could have gave more money to get behind to try to win these Senate seats. But of course, like you said, they so laser focused on the presidency. It don't matter if you got the presidency and Mitch McConnell's still going to be running the show, blocking everything. So you need to do those things. So my hope is that they give Stacey what she needs now to get this Senate race, to get the 2 Senate races she needs in Georgia, because even Nancy Pelosi. So this is the issue, the chasm, like the situation that I'm sick of seeing from those establishment Democrats who just been there way too long. Nancy Pelosi tweets out, everybody in Atlanta, telling the Atlanta, don't be too progressive, because if you're too progressive down there, you're not gonna. Nancy, you're not down there. Shut your ass up. Stacey is down there doing the work. Talk to Stacey. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Go ahead. Okay.
Well, I kind of want to go back a little bit to what Dame mentioned about, and what you were talking about in terms of supporters for Trump, because I talked to a friend of mine in North Carolina who was doing some canvassing, and she was talking to, and these words, she was in the city, in the community, and she said a lot of people in the hood were voting for Trump that necessarily weren't millionaires or wealthy because they were criminals. So to your point, they were voting against the Biden Harris ticket because of the criminal reform bill, the policies of getting reducing some of the sentences for ex-felons. So that little tidbit alone, that one aspect of what he did or what he appeals to people, is reason enough for them to vote for someone who has nothing else, and they have nothing else in common with. So it may not always be economic. And that's the only point I want to underscore, that, you have people who were felons that voted for Trump because of the fact of the crime bill.
And even if, and this is the thing, and even if that was the only thing, Biden nor Harris did enough in order to really address their past issues in that.
Right.
I think a lot of tap dancing around. It's like, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't know if this is something that needs to go later, but I think as we talk about what they need to do in light of what has transpired, Oregon just criminalized a good majority of recreational drugs like heroin and cocaine.
I know they're supposed to be doing that.
It passed. So it passed. So the thing is,
passed where?
In Oregon. It became the first state to decriminalize drug possession. Small amounts of hard drugs like cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine. Mm-hmm. Residents will no longer face arrest or prison sentences for carrying small amounts, and the measures will lay groundwork for people with substance abuse disorders to receive treatment instead of jail time. So now, this validates some people's opinion, but the opportunity still exists for this administration to redress some of the things they did, some of the policies, and how do you heal some of the harm you've done for people who won't get that benefit? People from the 80s and the 90s during the crack era, the drug crack era epidemic in LA, Atlanta, New York, all throughout the United States. Are those people going to get the same opportunities for treatment? How do we redress that?
Well, it validates from a racial perspective is that Oregon, being a predominantly white state, Oregon, having a history of running out a whole bunch of Black people that settled there, in Portland specifically, and then that area, running out a lot of Black people, now are one of the states that are dealing with a high, high addiction issues in white communities, right? So if that same piece of legislature was placed on ballots, let's say in Mississippi or South Carolina, it would not pass, more so than likely, because the stigma is still, well, that's a Black problem. So when it becomes a white problem, it's a problem. But when it's a Black problem, that's just really an inconvenience that the country has got to get over and move past, because it really doesn't affect the overall status quo, which moves to what we were talking about, or what Dame hinted to, in terms of Nancy Pelosi and this old guard of not just only Nancy Pelosi, but Clyburn, maybe even, I don't know what Maxine Waters has said about the matter. So what's going on is that there is a growing, actually it's gotten real ugly from what I've read, feud between the progressive contingency or wing of the Democratic Party versus the old guard. They call themselves moderate. I will call themselves moderate conservatives of the party, who the progressives, who are the younger, 30s and 40s,
the squad.
Yeah, the squad, and also people around the squad, and what I want to say with that, but with these 70 and 80-year-old representatives, and there is this clash in terms of how to move forward, which I think is also, in my opinion, a kind of like broader, or even alludes to what happened after the Obama presidencies, when Black people were like, Obama needs to do this for Black people, Obama needs to do that for Black people. And they were like, no, just let Obama do what Obama needs to do, because we can't raise that stake, because we want to get him elected the second time. Obama gets elected a second time. No, we just want him to have no scandal. And so there is something that's going on in the Democratic Party, that this change needs to happen in order to really move an agenda forward. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think this was all a facade anyway. I think, they probably coalesced on this issue because, they identified a common enemy. But I think both parties are probably going to fracture into separate parties. I think, you're going to see how this plays out over the next 4 years. Can each party garner up, when they split, can they garner up enough support to become the majority in the name only? So you have the same issue with Republicans, because even there's some fighting on the Republican side. Republicans are going after Republicans in Georgia because they think that the Republican was not transparent enough. So you look at those who are going to go and follow the Trump train versus those who are more conservative Republicans, just like you have more conservative Democrats versus the more, how will they win these upcoming seats and can mobilize enough members and support to move the party into a different direction. So I think that's probably what's going to happen after you get through this hopeful transition and concession of power.
Right. And I would also say that in terms of the Democratic ticket this time, I think it was more people voting against Trump than for Biden Harris,
Yeah.
And so I'm struggling with this feeling of success around, the campaign, because it wasn't a well-run campaign. They didn't, it was just, it was more, do you hate Trump enough to vote for them? And so I think that puts the Democratic Party in this precarious position, because it's like you didn't win the popular vote in this way because you guys were so great and your policies stood for something and things like that. You won in this way because that many people dislike Trump.
Right. Yeah.
I think beyond all of that, I think, even the progressive Democrats and the moderate Democrats, I think it goes beyond that, because they lost so many House seats. This is the issue. It's not even about Trump. It's the politicians the Democrats supported, instead of picking someone more progressive and young, they chose to go with the shield, like you said. So even beyond Trump, it's the Lord, it's the House, it's the Senate. And I think those are the areas where, you know, where they lost so many seats. They didn't put some younger people in, and they chose to go with older, more established, more traditional retreads. That is the bigger factor. Whereas if they'd have probably conceded some of these races, to let these younger progressive Democrats come in and maybe run and see if they can galvanize our base, provide us energy so that we can move forward. So there is going to be problems, I think, as you come in with the upcoming elections, you know, for the next Senate and the House. Younger people are going to, you know, challenge the old guard, and that's where the divisions are going to rise, become more intense.
Right, and I think Biden was really he got his play off the strength of Obama. Mm-hmm. He rode Obama's coattails to the presidency, because that's how Black people identify, especially older Black people, identify with Biden strictly because of his relationship with Obama. And we know Obama now, he goes on the pictures with Martin Luther King and Jesus. You know what I mean? So
and Mandela.
And Mandela, right. And so if you're running, you know, Obama said something interesting in his book. It's supposed to come out next week, but he said that the reason why Trump was elected was really on the heels of the anti-Black sentiments of him being in office. That's what pushed Trump into play. So now we're seeing the reaction from what it means to have a personality, and I don't say politician, but a personality like Trump's in office. I stand by that. I don't think that Trump has a real viable political ideology. I think he likes being president. I think he likes being in charge. I think his narcissism has pushed him to the point where it's almost a game, where, you know, whereas now it's like, you know, America has had enough to a certain, well, half of America has had enough. The other half is like, we're with it still. Like, let's see how much further we could take this, but to what end?
But I think also, I think when people, I think Trump won with it was an anti-Black sentiment, in addition to Obama not being an effective president as we thought he should be. So not only did you have a lot of people come out against Obama, but the fact that less people voted after Obama's presidency also shows that there were conversations where a lot of people were very disappointed in the lack of things that happened, or even the things that happened. I mean, Obama's international relationships or international work really was trash when it came to Africa. And, you know, in parts of the Middle East, to talk about the bombings that happened. They called Obama deporter in chief, all of the deportations that were going on. And then he has a presidency during the housing crisis. Black people lost a little bit of wealth they had during the Obama administration as a result of him bailing out the banks, but not bailing out the people. You know, so I think it's the anti-white sentiment in addition to that. But I think that also is the reverse with white voters. I think there are white voters that are like in this cult mentality against Trump, but there are also white voters that just do not want to ascribe to what they see as this kind of new America that's developing, that is diverse and has all these sexual identities, and it's just a little bit too much. Okay, so I think
so here's my question. Didn't the bank bailout occur prior to Obama coming into office? It was put in before by Bush, before he got in office?
You know what? I got to look at that because
because I think some of the things,
Obama, I do know this for sure, that Obama did have play a part in working with Wall Street and also big banks in terms of these new measures that were implemented after the housing crisis, that did not sanction them, but actually buffered them and supported them. That definitely.
And once again, I like to look at the comprehensive thing. And I think, you know, while he did not advance specific culturally based issues we would have liked, there was
What,
a lot
I'm
of
not talking about no
obstruction.
culture issue. I'm talking about some policy. I'm talking about
Right.
their
Well,
homes.
and it was a lot of undermining and some subversion by Mitch McConnell, John Boehner. So he didn't have the power and have the support to swing that vote. And on top of that, what came after him in terms of Tim Kaine and Hillary Clinton probably turned people off more so. In addition, so if you were, put off by the Democratic policies under Barack Obama, you definitely were turned off by your options of Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine, especially when people were moving toward the Bernie Sanders energy at that time. So I think that was probably the disaffected group, the Bernie Sanders contingency that maybe came on and said, okay, we're not going to sit out this election. We're going to jump in against Trump. Right. More so, that was another component of people, because I think there are a lot of Black people who are also Bernie Sanders supporters. So, well, I may not say a lot, but there were a good portion that also saw his policies as more progressive and beneficial to their interests. So it's more, I think it's more diverse than just, Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, but we also got to take into the Bernie Sanders contingency as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think also is that the cult of personality also plays a factor into it. Is that when Obama ascended into what he ascended into, he was such a magnanimous. He was such a character and
magnanimous.
Magnanimous. Thank you so much.
Magnanimous.
Yes. I gotta get so.
Gotta get it going.
Thank you so much. That a lot of people initially who voted him, he activated voters who weren't even in the voting process, but he didn't. The Democratic Party did not do what they needed to do to keep those voters engaged. So that's he made the money, but he didn't know how to keep that money, and so that's something that I hope Biden and Harris really work on, because I think a lot of the Black people are really holding them accountable, because they're like, we're not doing this again unless we see something.
Well, I think a lot of that too, as well, like how you said, they got the voters and didn't keep the voters. The Democratic Party and also us as Black people, and this is why I'm starting to really stress how much we need to start teaching older adults below us basic civics. We voted Obama in and sat back like, woo, we did that, and none of us came out for the midterms. You know what I mean? None of us came out for the midterms and gave them a Democratic Senate and House at the time. And I think that was a big part of, to the point that we were saying, like a lot of stuff that we weren't able to get policy wise, because I went and looked back, because, I had to do a deep dive because I know a lot of times I would get caught up in the talking points of saying the things that I heard everybody else saying about, how people was like, oh, Obama never did nothing for Black people. And I caught myself saying it a lot. And I said, you know what? I've been saying that, but let me go look, into things for myself. And when I looked at the nuts and bolts of what happened, and I looked at some of those bills that Mitch McConnell wouldn't even put on the floor, right. I was like, okay, damn, they were actually trying to do something for Black people, and they wasn't having it at all.
Right.
Same thing, like when I was saying, like, oh, Kamala locked up a bunch of Black people, da da da. And then I was like, well, I always say that, but let me go dive deeper into the numbers. And when I dive deeper into the numbers, I'm like, okay, the facts don't bear out to what I've been saying. So I had to even check myself on certain things. But that was because I was willing to go in and do a deep dive into actually talking about bills, go into a deep dive of actually things that were set to be passed that weren't passed, things that were sponsored by Kamala, things that were sponsored by Joe Biden. Like, because I was like, you know what, let me go actually look at records. Let me go look at their records. And a lot of those things that, and the everyday person who's not into politics like I am, the everyday person who doesn't do shows like I do, they're not going to know these things. Like, for example, a friend of mine just told a story the other day when we did Uncouth. He said there was a guy on at the barbershop out here in LA who was like, I ain't voting for Kamala. That bitch put me in jail. And he was like, so my boy was like, oh, you used to live in Oakland? He was like, no, I did some shit. I got into a little situation. I was like, that's how you know he did it, because he said a little situation. That's how you know he was guilty. He wasn't innocent. No, I got into a little situation on Washington and Normandy. And I was like, he was like, Kamala wouldn't prosecute nobody out here on Washington and Normandy. But a lot of people believe that, right? Because you hear that talking point and it gets legs. And so any black man in California who's been to jail, they are out here saying, man, Kamala got me in jail. And the crazy thing is,
you got your own self in jail. Stop. We too busy trying to free Pookie. Sometimes Pookie should have stayed there. Let's keep it a buck.
Nickname. Don't say Pookie.
Okay, but Pookie Loke. I mean, free Ray Ray. Ray drive. I'm sorry.
Right. But let me say this. It is the responsibility of those who have the language and the access to the civics information to make it accessible to the people. If we know that there is a mass amount of Black people who don't understand and don't know, and it hasn't been accessible, but that is who we need in order to push the line, what are we doing? So I always have to also, represent that. And that's how easy that this type of information can travel without, having any backing. But
let me tell you the hard part about that, because I agree with you 100%. Because I tell people all the time, if I'm the guy that I'm your political guy, because I get so many inboxes, I get so many text, phone calls. Yo, What does this bill mean? What's going on? Why should I vote for this? I get that all the time. And then I even get the really basic ones like, I used to live here, now I moved here. How do I vote? But a lot of times it starts off with, I don't want to ask a stupid question. So a lot of people are even too embarrassed to ask me the things that they don't know. You know what I mean? So we do have to break that barrier of a lot of the Black intellectualists like to make people who don't know these things feel less than. We have to stop that shit. Like, we really have to stop that, right? And we have to, like you said, we have to make it more accessible. Because one thing I try to do on my show, one thing I try to do on Uncle is I try to take everything that like we're talking about and make it very palatable for people who aren't into politics the way we are, who aren't into the interconnectedness of all that. Like, I try to make it like, this is plain Jane. This is the plain Jane version of that. And we have to continue to do more of that. But the flip side of that is, because I was on a live with Glasses Malone, a rapper out here in LA who does a lot of talking, and I'm trying to explain this exact same thing to him. And he has a big following. So I'm explaining to him, he like, man, these people out here don't give a fuck about bills. You talking about bills and niggas is hungry. But I'm like, I get what you're saying. Right. But these bills are affecting that hunger.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
and we have to, let me tell you, this is a real story. I used to teach African dance in the Jordan Down projects, and only Mexicans came to the African dance class. And I was like, why only Mexicans come to the African dance class? Well, I'm going to walk around the projects and pass out flyers, personally inviting the Black tenants, because it was predominantly Black, right? I went to one house and there was an older Black woman sitting on a porch stoop. I remember this like yesterday. She said, bitch, you ugly bitch. As a matter of fact, you ugly bitch, get the fuck away from my porch. I ain't no goddamn African. I'm Cherokee. Right. And so, I was walking around like, oh, Alafia, using these African languages, one, that shit hurt my feelings. And I like, it just, my shit went crunch, crunch, crunch. And I went home. But, sometime later, after I licked my wounds, I understood it. We must speak the language of the people, but this doesn't excuse the people.
Right.
But we must be prepared to have a comeback for those, because we know what's out there for those type of responses that are the easy responses to me, that are just kind of quick. They're quick comebacks, really just saying that they really don't know and they don't want to think. I think we have been so de-intellectualized that, because hip hop, if this dude is talking about hip hop is where you lost all your intellectual capacity. And he's saying that, you know what I'm saying? So right. I just think we need to do whatever that work looks like. We got a lot of work to do though.
Right. Well, so let me ask you this. So when we talk of this landscape and where we go forward, do we look at the role that maybe the athletes have played in, spreading out and influence and broadening the interest in certain elections and certain races, especially when we look at the WNBA and what happened with Kelly Loeffler and Raphael Warnock? A lot of that was given, a lot of that push and highlight came from the WNBA and the owner of the Hawks of the Atlanta Dream, who is a Trump supporter. And so the players reacted to that, which led to the NBA players also creating these movements would help get out the vote, register new voters. So now what happens with this energy now that you have with the NBA, with the professional athletes that help with this voting movement? That's a voting block too. That's a contingency. There are a lot of young people now that they were able to attract and organize. So these are also things that may go into how we view politics going forward, because now we have a more informed voting block from this point forward, which may change the narrative and the direction of elections going forward. Because now, starting from this day forward, maybe these young people will stay engaged with their peers who are a year younger, 2 years younger, those who didn't vote, and maybe even engage their parents in trying to sway how do we go forward in creating better policies and voting in our self-interest, voting for our needs as opposed to our interests.
Well, I agree with you. And I think because we have enacted and engaged all of these new voters, I think it is going to be up to us to continue to push that line. Like, I think one thing we can't do, and it's funny because I think the best thing that Trump has done actually is woke a lot of Black people up to the political process, period. Like literally just the basics of the political process. But because, and I say that because I feel like if Hillary would have won, it would have been business as usual for Black people. Mm-hmm. Black people wouldn't be at this place where we saying we want a specific Black agenda. You wouldn't have this many Black people being loud, and you would have this many Black people knowing now for a fact that if we don't vote for the Democrats, they will not win. Now we have factual, actual data to say, hey, yo, y'all need us. So run me my money. This is what we gonna need, or y'all gonna lose us. We have that data now, and we have the not only the pieces in place in regards to like people with access to the White House, but people with access, like people with access to Keisha Lance Bottoms, people with access to Stacey Abrams. Like I'm pretty sure that all of us on this call can probably call 3 or 4 people and get to one of them. Right? Like we can find 3 or 4 people and we can get to somebody close enough to the White House to say, hey, this is what y'all doing. This is what we need fixed, da, da, da. That's something that we as Black people have never really ever had. We have never had this specific proximity to not just the White House, but this specific proximity to the white power structure as it stands right now. Like we have.
You got a bison in the house. You're about to have a bison in the house. That's big.
Yeah.
And that's, you know.
Yeah,
but it means something.
Howard. He went to Howard.
I know.
Yeah, like whatever that is, right?
Yeah, whatever that is.
Right.
Well,
let's something to somebody.
Now let's look at this. If we all agree that Biden has won the election, even though there's been no concession, and how do you think the first 100 days should look for a Biden-Harris presidency? What are we even looking to get out of this? What are our expectations?
Well, I think, you know, I went and read their first 100 days. Mm-hmm. You know, their first 100 days, what would you call it? Their
transition.
Yeah, there you go. The first 100-day transition. And it's cute, but no, because listen, in a perfect world, I would actually really rock with their first 100 days plan. In a perfect world, in a regular time frame and a regular political sphere, I would really rock with their first 100 days. But we all know, truth be told, the first 100 days is going to be spent trying to figure out how to get this COVID thing under control and how to get the economy back running while COVID is still happening, and trying to follow the science to make sure we do the things that we need to do to be able, because there are some countries out there who have followed the science from the beginning, and they're actually open without restrictions, without masks. They're literally just open because they stopped, you know, they did their NBA bubble from the beginning, and and now they're good. So now we have to, like, we're going to have to kind of reset, figure that out. And I think really the most of the first 100 days is going to be spent on that. But if you want to talk about the actual 100 days policy that they set forth, they had some really good things economically that I like, that I saw. They had some really good things when it comes to racial equality, which I must say I have never seen anything about racial equality in the first 100 days plan ever in my lifetime of following presidencies and all that. So I say that to say that is movement for us. That is movement to say that when they get in, we still have to keep pushing that line and make sure they're accountable. But it looks like we're on the docket, and it looks like, you know, even from Biden's speech when he was saying like the African American community saved my ass, basically. I think they are starting to realize who we are and that leverage we have. So it's not only on us and our leaders around us to continue to push that line, but it's also on us to make sure we hold them accountable. But at least this time we can hold them accountable for something that's specifically on the docket. Because it's hard holding people accountable. Like, how can you hold Trump accountable for not doing enough for Black people when he never said he was going to? You can't hold somebody accountable for something they didn't say.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can't, like, and
Yeah.
so now we in a place where we got somebody we can actually hold account, because they said we are going to do this for Black people. Okay, cool. Now we can hold you accountable, because that means we are at least on the docket for you. Before this, we have not even been on the docket, and that's Democratic and Republican presidents. We just have not been on the docket, even for Barack Obama. Like, one of the craziest things I've heard is April Ryan, you know, because she's covered a lot of presidents over the years, and they asked Bakari Sellers asked April Ryan, like, what was the blackest White House? And she said it was Bill Clinton's, not Barack Obama's. She said the blackest White House was Bill Clinton's in terms of Black people actually having a seat at the table with the president. She said in terms of the people that Bill Clinton brought in to advise him on everything that was going on, the blackest White House she ever saw was Bill Clinton. So that just shows you the amount of work we have to do. Because even when you have a Black president, the White House ain't Black. Now, I guarantee you, if there was a Latino White House, it would be a Latino. You know, Latinos will have access. We didn't have that. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have that with Obama. So now I'm feeling like we got to get to a place where we have that access, we utilize the access, and we wield it. So that's what I think about the first 100 days.
So with the first 100 days, what I've noticed, I read something by the coronavirus advisor to President-elect Joe Biden, Dr. Michael Osterholm, and they recommended a 4 to 6 week lockdown, in which, you know, they esteem that there is enough resources to be able to cover job, wages, losses for small company and medium companies and all state and government entities for 4 to 6 weeks, and still come out of that on the positive side, ready to move in a productive direction economically. So that's one of the things they've suggested, you know, in the first 4 to 6 weeks of a President Joe Biden term. On top of that, one of the first things that he did announce was his COVID-19 task force, which I saw was quite diverse. It wasn't all white men. There were some women on it. There were people of different backgrounds, Latinos, I believe, Indians, people from different backgrounds. But the biggest issue with that, while you have these professionals, I also read about nurses. Nurses need to have a seat at the table. So therein lies the equity aspect, because now you have people who are actually on the front line, not just the researchers. You know, will the nurses have a seat at the table on this task force to be able to say, hey, this is what we're seeing. This is where exactly your theories meet, and where our practical experience will say we could be more fruitful and productive in stemming the causes here. So I think the first 100 days will definitely have to be ameliorating some of the differences, while you have your experts bring in the people who are actually on the front line living through these experiences to work with them. So that's the COVID-19 task force. Obviously, they're going to have to be dealing with the effects of the Georgia election, because by that time, January 5th is the runoff. So by the time the January 20th comes in, we'll be 15 days into knowing if there's going to be a 50-50 tie with Kamala Harris being the tiebreaker, or will they have to go another route in trying to push this agenda forward? Because that all these things sound good, but if there is no majority for the Democrats, all those plans may not come to fruition.
Or only by executive order.
Or only by executive order. Exactly.
And we don't know that he's willing to do that.
Right. I think that in the first 100 days, anything that is implemented in terms of, let's just say we'll take COVID-19. And all of the work that needs to be done or is being planned to be done around it, there must be earmarked a certain percentage for Black people to be employed in there. I think that that's something that is doable. It doesn't require, you know, it doesn't require for congressional approval in order to re-stimulate some type of economy in the Black community. I know that they're talking about having something with the SBA to help Black businesses, but it's not specifically. See, that's the thing. They're saying, well, we're helping Black businesses by reconfiguring the SBA, but everything is it's not a specific target. So I think that that is important when how they're going to implement. They also say something about cancel $10,000 in student loan debt. That's just a spit for me. I think that there needs to be another year moratorium on student loan debt until the restructuring of the Department of Education occurs. I think that there needs to be a serious full task force that is across multiple states that re-implements how schools are going to go back in class and what that looks like, and it must be teachers involved. I think that, and all these things need to be earmarked. There need to be Black people, and there needs to be a very clear and transparent way of how that really directly affects the economies of these communities.
All right. Well, I mean, I pretty much agree with what these are the dominant issues right now, you know, what each of you have come across. And I think that, you know, as we go into our next topic, you know, we want to kind of look at this. We understand what's happening in the United States for the most part, you know, in terms of the transition. So what do you think a global transition is going to look like? We see that a lot of international governments has acknowledged Joe Biden as the president-elect. However, Joe Biden, as the president-elect, has not had access to any of the transition teams that you typically have when you have a president-elect. So what do you think the international influence is on this first 100 days, or even let's just say starting now?
I think it's interesting. Go ahead.
No, thanks. I really think some of the former allies prior to Trump, they're probably secretly communicating with Biden right now because they probably haven't communicated with Trump over the last 3-4 months to a year. Let's and I'm not trying to be facetious, but let's be clear about this. This is a guy who withdrew from the Paris Agreement. Okay. And so, and even working against the United Nations. So we really pretty much do not have any diplomatic relationship. He got some homies in North Korea and Russia, and that's it. But in terms of how we interact with Canada, Europe, South America, those different relationships will come to fruition, I think, he's probably being briefed on the back end right now. Because I don't think that they're prepared to hand off any information. So, the biggest issue is going to stem these issues with Russia, interference with Russia and China, and the economic situations of China. Those are going to be the two biggest issues.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was on mute because my son is up there going crazy right now.
That black mama came out. I stopped.
I'm like, what's going on upstairs? Hold on, I'm sorry. Give me just a second. Go ahead, Mikhail.
No, I'm finished. Yeah. So I just think right now, the biggest issue is, that we're probably really going to have to deal with, the Biden administration is going to have to deal with is Russia and China. But I believe he's already having conversations and being briefed with other powers around the world who are typically friendly with the United States prior to the Trump regime.
I think a lot of the allies are rejoicing to have an adult back in the seat, like just in basic, like so we know that we know that Biden is going to rejoin the Paris Climate Accords, which I know a lot of people wanted. Is it the HWO? There's like the HWO. He's going to
WHO.
WHO. There you go. WHO.
Yeah.
He's going to rejoin that, and we had like some world leaders saying stuff like, "It's time to build bridges, not walls." We had some world leaders saying, "America's back." Paris literally rang church bells. They rang the Notre Dame bells for Biden. Like
didn't they light up the tower?
They lit up the tower. Like things you haven't seen ever done for an American election in other countries has been happening. And I find it interesting that the people who haven't been excited about a Biden win have been Putin and
China
and more and Israel, Iran, more of the the dictatorship places, more of the places that Trump probably benefits monetarily as well. Like the people who I think Trump has put in place to have a pipeline to American money, I think they are not happy about this change. Like, because Putin had his hand in the cookie jar this whole time. It was obvious. You know what I mean? Like, he's been making his money. He probably been making promises to Trump that after you get out the White House, you're going to be able to make this money over here with us. Like, we all know what's happening and what's going down. But I think from an international stance, it's going to put us back in better standing because, you know, and I'm sure you know, Kaya, traveling internationally, because I've done a bit of traveling internationally while Trump was president. They really think we're a joke at this point. Like they really think, like, y'all voted Trump in, like y'all president is a clown. Like, and it's so crazy because like these are places that are like underdeveloped. You know, you got you in places that are less developed than America, and they like y'all dumb, and you can't even say nothing, right? Like you. So I think having Biden in the president, having a Biden-Harris president and vice president at least makes you feel like there's going to be some stability to the White House, because I don't know what CNN and Fox is going to do, because they have literally spent the last 4 years talking about Trump and his wild every single day. I don't know what I was trying to think, what did regular news look like before Trump? I don't even remember what CNN looks like pre-Trump. I don't remember what Fox looked like pre-Trump. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens post-Trump and how they deliver the news, because you're not going to have Biden wilding out every day. Like, because, you know, a Biden scandal is probably going to be more a policy scandal, right? That's not sexy to sell as Trump cussing people out and throwing his boys under the bus and his homies getting arrested. Like, you think, if you really think about how wild the Trump presidency is,
here gang banging,
it's straight gang banging, and you don't
frat house.
Yeah, and then it's like 1 week. I remember because I tried to do my own social experiment, and 1 week it was like 6 Trump scandals, right? It was like 6 things in 1 week. So by the time it got to the end of the week, the biggest thing that was actually something policy wise was forgot about because of the other noise he was making over here. I think this was during the China, the tariff wars, right? Because they start going so badly, he started doing a whole bunch of other crazy shit, and people forgot about how bad the tariff wars were going because of all the other wild shit he started doing over here. It's like, so it'll be interesting to see where we go.
Didn't he just fire the Secretary of Defense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like he's firing a bunch of people and bringing in loyalists.
Right.
I mean, look how many people been the turnover in this administration in 4 years.
Right. But
in the last 4 days.
Yeah.
4 days.
You know, and I've been saying this. Who the people who are? I need to know who Trump handlers are. Give me their names. We need to expose all of the people who kept that chaotic machine running. It was chaotic.
Stephen Miller, you had Stephen Miller, A.G. Barr, because A.G. Barr, remember, A.G. Barr was around for Bush too. A.G. Barr is the one who kept a lot of chaos up for Bush.
McConnell.
Right.
You know, so
these are the public people we know, but I want to know those private people, because there are people who made a lot of money and wielded a lot of power in what Trump did that I think it's falling.
Home Depot, whoever owned that home, all the donors. Who are the donors that gave that dude money? Who are the
And
donors?
also, right now, the only country who has not acknowledged Biden's win is Russia. China even came out this morning and sent out their congratulations. So I think that shows you something right there. You know, the fact that the country that he had the most issue with tampering with the votes, you know, just insinuating themselves in American political issues, is the only one that is not acknowledging our election now.
Yep.
You see that?
Yeah.
So I think
Because we didn't use the
see,
machines. We used the paper. If we'd have used the machines, they'd have been congratulations on a good vote. We didn't use the machines. We tricked you. We used the paper.
I want to
You ain't switching nothing today.
So I want to throw out. This is actually the last question. For this is, and I think this is an ongoing conversation that we need to have, because one of the things I'm committed to is that when we do the weekly check-ins, we must, in terms of talking about having people be more civically engaged and understanding what's going on, we must continue this. I mean, because there's even a lot of back work that I have to still do in terms of like reading up on stuff and how things go. There's a lot of I think shortly after Obama, Trump was elected there, and people were seeing exactly what was happening. They said that after Trump's administration, there will be so much damage that it will take, first they said decades, now they're saying generations in order to repair.
Well, yeah, because he had all those lifetime appointments. Like, people forget, it's going to take generations, because he got all those judges, those lifetime appointed judges that aren't even qualified to be judges. Now he got the Supreme Court that he wants, which is funny though, because even though he got the Supreme Court that he won, he thought they were going to be his personal valets. Doesn't seem to be working out that way at a state level and at a federal level for a lot of his cases that he got going, that they're kicking out and throwing out. So that's interesting, that because as much as they follow Trump, I think people forget a lot of these people are still constitutionalists. And I think that's the one thing that Trump can't trump, is those white people who are constitutionalists, who are tied to the original way the Constitution was written. That's the one thing he can't beat. And I think he miscalculated when he put in judges who were staunch constitutionalists.
Right.
He didn't put in, he didn't
go to college. He didn't understand what that meant.
Yeah, he didn't. For real, yeah.
Right, but I think a lot of people hide behind that term of Constitution, but the question is that what Constitution are you defending? The first one? Because if it's the first one, you know what I'm saying? We SOL up in this piece.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's another thing as well. And then having sat on a few cases and hearing like the full thing of judges, there are judges that will not try a case or bring a case because of the political consequences that might happen if they need to be elected, or how they're maneuvering. So there's a lot of politics and judgeship that we must acknowledge as well. Right. We all know that this was going to be a conservative Supreme Court. We already know that the person that they put in the Supreme Court is nothing but a figurehead, has really I think my probably, 7th grade nephew can run rings around understanding, laws before Amy Coney Barrett. But my question is that what do you think, and this is even outside of politics, some critical repair work that needs to be done, that we need to be doing, we need to focus on?
For me personally, like what I'm trying to do between now and January, I'm trying to put together like a small little coalition of some teachers that want to teach some free civics classes, and I'm trying to find the funds to pay them, at least, for their time, because I want to give free civics classes to adults who don't understand these things, and we trying to figure out the best way to disseminate the information. So do we want to do live courses, or do we want to do courses people can access whenever they get a chance, and then come in and do a live Q&A session for things that they may not have understood or be confused about? So I'm actually talking to a friend of mine in Texas now, Jason Barzini, about putting that together, and talking to a couple of other educators out here in LA, because I think the basis of it is very important, right? Like if we can get to the foundational pieces and teaching our people the foundation, if we are going to be a part of this political machine, if we are going to decide to vote, if we are not going to tear the system down, then we need to get fully engaged in it, and we need to learn it so we can manipulate it the way that they do. Because one thing that I have realized is all the time that we say, oh, voting don't work, and I'm like, well, I think it doesn't work because we haven't figured out the loopholes like they have, because they wrote it. So they know the loopholes that they wrote in, right? But I'm like, if we can figure out the loopholes now like they have, I think we can start to make this machine work for us. Of course, once we do that, they're going to change the rules again. But in the meantime, we need to get our people educated so they can actually become educated voters the next time around on their own too. Like I really want, because for me, teaching the civics class is not about teaching the civics class so you can vote Democrat or Republican. It's teaching civics class so you can have the information to make the best decisions with the information that you have. So that's what I want to do. I want to put together that. I want to put together a coalition of Black people to talk about the biggest 10 things we need for a specific Black agenda, just the biggest 10 things. And then we start to go into making these little arms off of those 10 things, like say, for instance, if we're talking about healthcare is a huge thing for African Americans, but then we got to talk about how Black women are treating healthcare. That's one arm of it. How Black men don't even like to go to the doctor. How do we get them to change that? Like that's another arm of it. So it's all of these things that I want to kind of try to start putting together with like-minded people who have an affinity and who really care about our people and really care about the advancement of our people. That's why I am now. I'm trying to take take what we're doing and take it to the next level, community-wide, to the streets.
Damn, you better call Cube and tell him you need some money to get this going. I mean, you're right there. You're right there.
Is Biden going to talk to Cube now? Because they say they will talk to him after the election.
That's a good point.
Yeah. But I mean, if go to the people who's talking, get the money from them. You said you wanted to do something. Let's get it.
Let's see.
Right.
Let's give money to the sheeple. Give money to the sheeple, like Cube, as you said.
And I think to Dane's point, I think we all have to do our little part in trying to move the culture forward and educate our people. So in whatever format we can disseminate information, especially to the younger generation, so that they can grow into an awareness, a cultural awareness, and a civic awareness, and the accomplishments of people who have traveled in those political and social paths before us. So I think that's kind of where the lane I'm working on with some literacy materials and, just getting information out to different sector of people so that, they can be more informed.
I will say that, it seems to me right now, especially in 2020, you've seen a lot of traction with Black people getting into spaces that they were not originally, I guess you can say, welcome into, even in terms of media coverage in the in film and podcast and social media and things like that. So I think that we're at a point where we're really as a community flexing like we've never done before. You know what I mean? And I think that we have to make sure that we do not get into that same comfort zone that we did during the Reagan era, when we started feeling, we started getting into corporate, started getting into academia and things like that. And I feel like we got comfortable, and instead of moving forward with agendas for Black people, we kind of just got consumed by the corporate culture, the money and things like that. If we stay on track the way that we are going now, just even in terms of our narratives and that's moving forward, if we continue on that trajectory of not being steeped in oppression but forward movement, I think for younger generations, that's what they're going to know. See, we were taught in this oppressive kind of space where it's like, you have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you got to do you have to work twice as hard to do the same thing, and all of these other messages that kind of let us know that we had a lot of work to do. if we can continue to push this narrative that we are here, we are powerful, we have access to money, we have access to resources. They may not be the same as, you know, what a Trump supporter or what have you would use, but we have our own thing. And not lose that and let the Biden administration co-opt that work that we're doing. It should never, I don't feel like moving forward. We understand that it's the Biden administration, but this is work that Black people are doing. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to keep that momentum going. This is what we do. You know what I mean? I don't know about you other cats, but this is what we do, and we keep it moving. And that's how I think that we should move forward with that narrative. Yeah. I think that's important. The other's been overdone, you know? Yeah.
I would just say, for me, I think that there needs to be a lot of repair work in the wealth gap. Is happening because the reality is that we're all Generation X. And the reality is that, you know, a lot of us don't own homes. We may have jobs, but a lot of us don't own homes, or we're in so much debt that our children will not inherit the homes that we bought when we pass. Yeah. We really need to really be about repairing these racial wealth gaps that exist, and these wealth gaps. That's important. I also think that as a result of the 4 years, we have severe mental health issues that we need to address. And I would say issues in particular when you have a Trump that is distributed or on the channels continuously of being this, basically this white man, racist man bullying the whole world. So he carried the narrative of the white slave owner into contemporary life, right? And I, you know what I said, if this would have, and I said, you know, he did good business for a lot of people, because they would have literally, if they could not have politically removed him, they would have physically removed him. All right. So because they didn't do that, he's making some very powerful people a lot of good money, or placing them in a position that they need. Chris Hedges, the journalist, said something to me that was really powerful. He said that Trump was allowed to occupy the White House because they needed somebody so bad that we would take anybody other than what Trump offered. And so I think that's what it is. Like for me, I feel like Celie in The Color Purple. It's like I either live at my stepfather's house and get raped, or I marry Mr. And I decided I'm gonna go ahead with Mr. But Mr. ain't, you know, do no better. It's gonna take me a half a lifetime in order to find myself. But I also think that it's so important. But with that being said, it comes to like the media. The media has eaten so lovely off of which Dame said, has eaten so lovely off of it. So in this new era, or this post-Trump era, the only thing that would exist prolifically is still the killing of Black people. And I think that we really need to, as a collective, push against the media representation of when Black people get killed by the police and how it is distributed, because the media is going to have to make their money off of something, and they still making money off of black bodies. So there's some other things, but those are some things that I think are important. And also, we do have to tackle this issue that massive vaccines are. Massive vaccines, are they safe? According to science, the rate in which these vaccines are being introduced into the society is unheard of, right? It's the vaccines take years in order to test and approve. Yeah, but we're talking about 9 months. I mean, we really need to be critical about this and really challenge this, right? So they're talking about doing mass vaccinations sometime between and this is Trump and Biden, sometime between, the end of the year and March 2021. And lastly, lastly, another thing is that there still is on the table, because of the pandemic now, a food shortage. I got a food shortage. We have got to address this food shortage that they say that is not coming. It's already here. They say estimate between 32 to 40 million people are hungry in the United States a day as a result of the pandemic. What are we going to do when we in the food shortage. So those are things I think that we really need. And a lot of people have just become so unhealthy in the pandemic because all we doing is sitting, drinking, eating, having conjugal visits. You know what I'm saying? And smoke, whatever. I'm just, I'm whatever. But I'm saying we've got to address also the health of the nation too, as well.
I had.
Oh, go ahead, Ro.
We had at Xavier. They sent out a joint letter from Dillard and Xavier's president asking the students to participate in the vaccine trials, which I thought was, when I first saw it, I was like, I can't be reading this correctly, like just the history of it in and of itself. You would think, like, why would I understand that Black communities are being hit harder, but why would you be the guinea pigs for something that is so new? You know what I'm saying? And I think it was even was it Bill Gates that said when they get a vaccine that they were going to offer it to the Black community first?
That and I think they said the Black community and medical workers.
Right.
These are the high risk groups. The high risk groups.
Right. The high risk groups, and of course they label it as high risk groups, but I think it's dangerous. That's really what I think about it. I think it's dangerous. I think that I'm no medical doctor or anything like that, but I would be. Has any country used a vaccine yet?
No.
We would be the first.
Maybe India might be the first, or even like Nigeria might be.
Okay. I would have been more comfortable if this was a collective effort between countries that have been affected by COVID. I think that was a collaboration that definitely should have happened, that Trump did not allow to happen. So I would not participate at this point in it. But if it becomes mandatory, like to get into schools, to get jobs, to go places and things like that, I think that would be the way that they're going to go with it. They're going to just make it mandatory and you can't leave the country or things like that. So I would have been much more comfortable if it was a global effort, because it's a global pandemic. And if there was some type of, what's the word that I want to use, where it's
maybe like a collaborative effort,
not a collaborative, but there was some consistency around how the vaccine would be created, how it would be implemented, and all of these things. I feel like it should have been a collaborative effort because it was a global issue.
I'm so concerned about this because it is not about the health of people. This is totally a financial come up for a handful of companies that are running these trials and that will release these drugs, vaccines. Even Fauci's history is not a clean. People are praising Fauci, but Fauci has a funky history in terms of the medical field. You could look it up and Google it. So there's a lot of concerns around that, but that's exactly what the talks in the cables are, is that they're going to mandate it to where you have very little movement, if any, if you decide not to take these mandatory vaccines. So, and then also with, it was something else I wanted to say about the vaccines, but I forgot, but those are things that I'm really looking at and what that looks like, because often communities who are the most vulnerable are the ones that are targeted. As well, I believe that there will be those who do have the resources can actually section themselves off and live without all of the things that those who cannot will be enforced to abide by. So that's what I'm looking at and concerned about. Okay, y'all, we had a mouthful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mikhail had to get off. He had to run and do, had an appointment. But I do thank you guys for another weekly check-in. It was so good to talk to you. I know we're all still recovering from the elections that still are not over.
Right. Right.
So just on a note, we are ending, well, we're mid-November, but we're ending November. I just want to make kind of like this announcement. Every December, we have this something called the Light Series, where for the month of December, we actually just focus on all things that bring just good happiness, joy, bring the light. And so
We need that.
we totally need that. So
We
I just
need
want to
that.
put that bug in our listeners' ear, and also look forward to see what we as contributors will do. So until next week.
If you wanna see good news, you don't see on regular TV. From another perspective, something relative to your needs. And we gonna have deep subjects, and we gonna turn the lens. And there's no topic we won't skip. So